Well, this year I thought, what the hell? Hello Internet, and welcome to another edition of Furry Fandom Stories. I'm SandyBfox.Bsky. It's the 21st century. Humankind has finally started colonising the last unexplored frontier on Earth, the ocean. And they're throwing a FurCon. This year would be a milestone for me. ConFuzzled 2024 would be my 10th ConFuzzled and my 15th convention overall. The attendance figure has jumped once again from last year's 2,661 to 2,881. This included 895 sponsor tickets and 143 day tickets. The theme for this year was Dylan's Oceanic Odyssey. Under the sea, sailing, things like that. But before I go into the convention itself, just a quick recap on things I said I do differently from last year. Trying to properly time when I can be in suit and go around the convention with my camera wasn't all that difficult, despite staying at the Premier Inn again this year. Instead of my body clock waking me up at 6 AM in the morning, I found myself lying in on a couple of mornings, so I didn't really need a power nap at all. So, ConFuzzled 2024, how did this one turn out? In a repeat of last year, I decided to take an earlier train down to Birmingham, and I arrived at Hilton when it was still sponsors only registration. But the line wasn't too long, and I managed to register without any problems. Afterwards, I went to the NEC to grab myself some lunch and then hauled my tail end all the way to the Premier Inn to check into my room. Just like last year, in the sponsorship package this year, I got a hardcover copy of the comic book, as well as convention t-shirt, a pin badge, a key ring, car window sticker, and I also got a throw rug / blanket in the same style as Dylan the Crocodile's beach shorts. Not much to speak of in the afternoon or evening, apart from socialising and a little bit of drinking. By 8 PM it was time for the opening ceremony, and again, just like last year, because of the sheer amount of people who were attending, I was corralled into the second stage to watch the whole thing on a big screen. This year would be in for a treat, as both Mel and Dylan got their own fursuits, making them official mascots for the convention. And again, like last year, there was a convention-wide treasure hunt, or beg your pardon, meta game, as it's now officially coined by the convention, where the attendees were split up into two teams, and I didn't know this at the time, but the winning team would decide what the theme would be for next year's convention. This year, instead of having two guests of honour, ConFuzzled decided to just have one guest of honour and have what's called a Furry Community Spotlight guest, where a member of the UK or wider furry fandom has been recognised as a pillar of the furry community. It could be that they have done fundraising work for charity, or they volunteered for a local community project, things like that. The guest of honour this year was Haps, a visual artist from Portugal who's also written and composed his own rock opera, Adastra. The community spotlight was on Branstone, a horse furry from Sutton who was honoured for their fundraising work for charities such as Yaris PCA, has done volunteer work for the St John's Ambulance, and was even volunteered to help people get vaccinated during the COVID-19 crisis. For 2024, the charity would be the British Wildlife Rescue Centre. However, their representatives were running late and couldn't be at the opening ceremony themselves. We also got an update from Wolfwatch UK on how the money we raised for them last year was being spent. There's something else I want to say about the opening ceremony this year. I have always recorded the opening ceremony, not just at ConFuzzled, but at every furry con I have attended. I even recorded the second stage screen last year. But then...
We don't want a premature cannulation.
Well, no. I suppose not, do we now?
So, Foxy,
I'm not allowed to.
want you to introduce, you talk a little bit about what you do outside of the convention, but in the fandom.
What I do outside
Yeah,
of the
what do you get on with? What do you do?
There's going to be a running
But if
theme
I come back
outside of the
later,
convention.
I'm sorry, I need to go find out.
I raise
It's
money
too
for
much,
charity.
okay?
But I
I'll
run-
find out.
A little longer than a few minutes later.
When I asked what the problem was, the crew member in question wouldn't give me a proper explanation. Just said, I was told to stop filming. Also, this is something I want to bring up later on in the video. So, feeling a little bit miffed, after opening ceremony, I just went to have some drinks at the bar. Later on, as I was pacing around the hotel lobby, I saw Regda and Damien Tanuki, who had their guitars and were having a bit of a jam session. And after I was watching them for several minutes, Regda passes me his bass guitar. Me and Damien had a little bit of a jam where I dropped the bass into drop D tuning, and we ended up playing Avalon by the Foo Fighters. Looking back on it though, I should have really have played Bad Fish by Sublime. Would have kept in line with the convention's theme. I didn't go to the dances that night. Instead, I socialised with some friends of mine I haven't seen in a while, and after more than a few drinks, I staggered back to the PI. After breakfast, I headed to the Hilton and was waiting for Dealer's Den to open up. Seeing as I didn't buy much on my first lap, I'm going to save the My Swag portion of the video until later on. After going to Dealer's Den, I spent some time going around with my camera, going on a little fursuit safari. Saturday was also Motor Furs Day. The TVR Chimera made a return, and other cars of interest included a BMW 8 Series, a Porsche Taycan Turbo, a Chevrolet C4 Corvette, Volks Skoda Octavia with Spider the Dragon vinyl wrap, a Volvo 940 in Norwegian police livery, and there was a Nissan Skyline there as well. In my previous ConFuzzled video, I had said that I really enjoyed the Fursuit Menagerie, but this year the convention decided to merge it with the inflatable showcase. Now, the reason why I enjoyed the Menagerie last year was you would suit up, go along at the right time, and you would get your picture taken with other attendees who were the same species or colour or connecting theme as your persona. I think the reason as to why they merged it with the inflatable showcase was so that suitors could pose with the more elaborate inflatable props. However, this presented a problem. Most of these inflatables were quite large and they did take up most of the room space, which meant you couldn't really have the room needed to do the big group photos. In fact, if I recall, the only space that was cleared in that room was for the VR portal. Also, if you missed the photo shoot, like I did both last year and this year, it gave attendees the chance to walk away from the con with at least one professionally taken photograph. With the two events merged together, there were no assigned time slots, so you just turned up whenever you wanted, and if there was a photographer in the room, you might be lucky enough to get a photo, but no promises. Why do people see something that worked quite well and then change it and it ends up cocking the whole thing up? So, feeling a little bit disappointed, I just stuck to suiting in the hotel lobby and outside the Hilton's main entrance in the hopes that somebody might get a photo of me in fursuit. Another thing I want to add is, seeing as I hadn't suited since ScotiaCon, I decided to do my fursuiting in half-an-hour chunks. So I would suit in the lobby for half an hour, then go into the cool-down lounge or the fursuit lounge for 10 minutes, and then suit up again, back out for another half an hour, and then back to the fursuit lounge again. Doing it in half-an-hour chunks seems a logical way of easing myself back into it. As for the rest of the day and night, I went to a writers' panel. I met up with a couple of friends for a few rounds of drinks, and I did decide to attend the dances that night. Oh, whoa, what's this? An email from the convention. Oh, for fuck's sake, not again. Not going to let the locals spoil my fun, I went to the dances that night, but I called it quits after midnight when the music sounded less melodic and more like... I walked back to the Premier Inn that night, constantly looking over my shoulder to make sure I wasn't being followed. Well, what do you know? I actually had a lie-in that morning. After breakfast, I went to the mini-mart in the NEC to grab myself a Monster Energy. When I got back to the Hilton, I prepared my camera, and that was when I was approached by Shadow Raccoon, who invited me to come along to the raccoon photo shoot. And after taking more than a few pictures of the guys, as well as more than a few pictures of Theodore Rabbit, I decided to shoot for myself for a little while before getting some lunch at the Five Guys in Resort World. But when I got back to the Hilton, I didn't want to twiddle my thumbs for the whole afternoon. There had to be something on I wanted to go see, so I had a look in the schedule. What's Critters in Boxes? Awesome! Fucking awesome! Look at it! This is great! Oh, this is the best thing ever! To add a little context, Critters and Boxes is Fursuit Fiasco meets improv with cardboard boxes. It's a simple concept, highly enjoyable to watch, and I think I found something to add to my list of events to regularly attend at ConFuzzled. Shortly after Critters and Boxes, it was time to head for the main stage for Shadow Raccoon's Price is Right. Seeing I was called up on stage last year, and I was a proper on-stage contestant from ScotiaCon earlier this year, 2024, if you're watching this in the future, I decided not to participate in the audience games because, well, I've had my moment in the spotlight. It's time to step aside and let somebody else have a go. And shortly after Shadow Raccoon's Price is Right, I joined the line for the next main stage event. The directors present A Night at the Musicals, a showcase event for members of the staff and crew to sing some songs from their favourite musicals, films, TV shows, even snippets from their favourite operas. I will say this, I was very pleasantly surprised at how well some of the participants sang. Who would have known that Eddie Hamster had an impressive set of pipes on them? And Heart Lily's rendition of Into the Unknown from Frozen 2 was excellent. There was some stuff I was familiar with, some stuff that I wasn't, and hell, there was even some Gilbert and Sullivan. Sunday night was when Animals Club would take over the main stage for the dancers. For those of you who don't know, Animals is a more adult-themed dance where people who are more into the kinkiest elements of the Furry Fandom get a chance to express themselves. You did need to register to get in, and seeing how it wasn't my cup of tea, I decided to give it a miss. I did suit up and was thinking of checking out Fursuit Wii Sports, but as I went through the front entrance of the hotel, another attendee had set up their own DJ mix desk and a speaker system, and they have an impromptu rave at the front of the hotel for the attendees who couldn't or didn't want to go to Animals. It was so much fun doing the YMCA in Fursuit. Another lie-in that morning, and I managed to get some breakfast before the Premier Inn stopped serving. Afterwards, I grabbed my stuff, including my face painting kit, and I made my way to the Hilton. Once I got there, I joined the line waiting for Fursuit Fiasco to start. Ooh, another message. Convention alerts. Oh, it says that Fursuit Fiasco has been cancelled. Strike one! Well, since I suddenly had a gap in the convention schedule that morning, I decided to go on my second lap of the Dealer's Den. And without further ado, Dealer's Den, my swag. This year I bought myself a yellow Paws t-shirt, along with 2 more t-shirts from Sterling Griff, 3 Fallout themed neck collars from Hamani Kitsu, as well as some fursuit collars too. A copy of A Christmas Reunion by Todd Aldrington, a new lanyard along with some pin badges, some stickers from Heart Lily, a bottle of scented fursuit spray from Carniv Creations, a Foxconn badge, and a canvas fox tote bag by Lindsay Green Illustrations. After I went through my second lap at Dealer's Den, I went to suit up, and I want to explain why I was wearing my work t-shirt that day. You see, at my place of work, my colleagues are always saying how we'd love to see me coming to work in fursuit. However, there are problems, mainly to do with health and safety. Because of the nature of the work I do, there are trip hazards, and also I don't want any hydraulic oil on my partial. So what I did, I went along in my work clothes, whilst wearing my partial at the same time to get some shots for some of the guys in the workshop. Monday was also the day of the Paw Pet show on the main stage, and this year they wanted to do an interpretation of the old Greek myths. To stop a horde of suitors asking for a maiden hands in marriage, Dr. Stein and his friends Jim and Quentin go on an epic journey, an odyssey, if you will, to complete 12 labours to do something, or rather, hell, they end up speaking to the Oracle before going to the nameless city of Aurelia at some point, and look upon the visage of Cthulhu. But they ended up doing the thing, and it was easier to follow than last year's. You know you're getting old when instead of groaning at the dad jokes, you start to chuckle along with them.
Yellow. Is that the Call of Cthulhu? Sorry.
Nevertheless, I really enjoyed the show this year. Also, they carried on with the minimalist presentation. After the Paw Pet show, I felt hungry, so I went to the NEC to grab myself some dinner. However, due to some hassle involving my contactless card not working, I had to make a trek from the NEC back to the Premier Inn in the pissing rain just to get my hands on some hard cash. And because of all this rushing to and fro between the NEC, the Premier Inn and the Hilton, it meant that I missed the Science Fair's meet and greet. After grabbing something to eat from the food stalls outside the front of the hotel, I decided to take some time in the quiet lounge, giving me a good opportunity to go through the photographs I had taken so far of the convention. And as the evening turned into night, I went to grab my face painting kit, because old school Sandy was coming out to play for Rock Night. Now this is the part of the video where I'm gonna flip and pump up my ego by going on about all the compliments I got about my facial art scheme. If there's any of you guys watching that finds this kind of thing distasteful or boring, there's the time code. The last time I did any kind of facial art was back in 2019, before I got my fursuit head, and I hadn't done it since. One thing I will note is I was taken slightly aback by all the compliments I got about my face painting skills, considering that quite some time ago I was considered the butt of a lot of jokes. This asshole cannot be serious. Hey, nice makeup job. Hey, have you seen that twat walking around with the American football jersey and the face paint? Cool facial art. Nice face paint, mate. What are you supposed to be? A tiger? I know you from somewhere. Yeah, were you in that BBC interview? Yeah, that was like so many years ago. Oh, cool. Hey, can I get a selfie? I did catch the last 15 minutes of the poodle dance, which went straight into Rock Night, kicking off with some Nirvana, and then went on to play some Weezer and some Foo Fighters. Well, I was really getting into it. But then... Oh, for fuck's sake! Some idiot set off the fire alarm, which meant everybody out, and it brought Rock Night to a grinding halt. By the time we were given the all clear and allowed back inside, I just grabbed my stuff and made my way back to the Premier Inn. That fire alarm is what killed the night for me. The closing ceremony was pushed back to later on in the afternoon, so after I had breakfast, I had the time to do some packing. When I got to the Hilton, I noticed I didn't have my pocket guide on me, and I wanted to know what time the second fursuit lounge closed after the dead dog. So I asked one of the stewards on the door, "Excuse me, do you know what time the fursuit lounge closes after the dead dog?" "Hang on a second, I'll check." When I got the information I wanted, another steward added, "You know, you should have the pocket guide on you all the time. All the information is in there if you just bother to read it." It was my first dead dog. It was not my first convention. As customary for the closing ceremony, Matt Lyon gave the convention goers the usual statistics on attendee numbers, all the food we eaten, especially the beans and the bacon, and all the alcohol we drank. The guest of honour, Haps, gave his thanks to the convention crew and staff for inviting him. The representatives from the British Wildlife Rescue Centre gave their thanks for the attendees' generous donations, and soon came the time when we made the charity reps cry. As of May 30th, according to the ConFuzzled account on the website formerly known as Twitter, the total amount raised by the convention was £37,102. And as the closing ceremony was winding down, it was time for the theme for ConFuzzled 2025 to be revealed. Anybody who was following the metagame closely would realise that two words kept on repeating themselves. Aesthetics for Team Vigour, and Tremolo for Team Savvy. Aesthetics is the study of thought and emotion in regards to visual beauty. Tremolo is a word used in music theory. It's used to denote a series of notes that are played in very quick succession. When I heard the word tremolo, I crossed my fingers and was hoping and wishing for something music related. However, Team Vigour won the metagame, which meant that the theme for ConFuzzled 2025 would be Mel's Fashion Week. Oh. After the closing ceremony ended and whilst waiting for the dead dog to start, you can help but notice how emptier the Hilton was. The hotel seemed quieter, somewhat smaller. As I was taking photos of the last few attendees who remained, I did it with a lump in my throat and a tear in my eye. The ConFuzzled 2024 dead dog would be my third one. My first dead dog was just for the weekend back in 2018, and my second one was ScotiaCon earlier this year. For this dead dog, I wanted to go full face paint Sandy. I didn't care that a majority of it was going to sweat off in half an hour. I wanted to see this convention out with a bang. When midnight rolled around, that was it. It was time for the convention to start packing up. And then I went to put my furry gear away, and after a while I left the Hilton and I walked back to the Premier Inn with what remained of my facial art. When I said that last year's ConFuzzled was my best convention experience to date, I think I went into this convention with unreasonably high expectations. And it showed. My final grade for ConFuzzled 2024 is a B-. Positives: jamming with Reg Dare and Damien Tanuki. Critters and Boxes was very enjoyable, loved it. The impromptu raves that would take place on nights, especially the one by the hotel entrance on Animals Club night. And the ConFuzzled Dead Dog was lots of fun, really enjoyed it. Right, negatives. First of all, the locals. Again, seriously? The Fursuit Menagerie and the Inflatable Showcase merged into one event. Fursuit Fiasco being cancelled. The fire alarm that brought Rock Night to a grinding halt. And finally, you could tell who the noobs were on the team this year, because there were some stewards and volunteers who seemed very inexperienced, and a couple of stewards in particular who seemed, well, quite dismissive whenever you asked them questions. Now, before a load of enraged furries come to my house and take turns to piss through my letterbox, all I'm trying to say is ConFuzzled 2024 was in no means bad. A convention experience must boil down to one key question. Was it fun? Yes. Yes, it was. My main gripe with this convention was certain members of the crew or certain volunteers or stewards who seemed very inexperienced or arrogant enough to talk down to regulars like they were first-timers. An example of this would be the guy who told me to stop filming during the opening ceremony, and I didn't get a clear explanation. The Code of Conduct clearly states that the taking of photographs or recording video is restricted in 3 key areas. 1. The dealer's den. 2. The fursuit lounges. 3. Any areas of the hotel that are marked for staff only. The only instance where the convention does take umbrage with you videotaping something is if you record something and then put it behind a paywall, like say uploading it up to Patreon or a similar site. Another example of this would be when I was chatting to another one of the volunteers, and I asked them, you've probably gone to quite a lot of furcons, and they replied, actually this is my second. Not to mention that there was one student that was being dismissive simply because I asked him a question. And I would like to address the ConFuzzled staff directly for a moment. Now, I have a deep appreciation for what you guys do. I've had friends who have worked for ConFuzzled in previous years, and they're now on the staff for other conventions. I can understand that trying to make sure everything runs smoothly, especially in a convention space where you have that many people attending, can be very hard work. Without you guys, there is no ConFuzzled or any other convention. All I'm suggesting is that you guys need to seriously assess the suitability of candidates who approach you in regards to volunteering or joining the crew. I have a feeling that more than a few people watching this video will be of the opinion of, fine! You think you could do a better job? Why don't you join the crew? This is the thing. I don't think my skill set would benefit the convention in any meaningful way. The only part of the crew I realistically see myself joining is the engineering staff, but I have a feeling that's more electrical engineering. I'm an accredited mechanical engineer and I'm a hydraulics engineer by trade. But saying that, I do have some electrical assembly experience from my current job. So who knows, next year you might see me walking around with a crew lanyard. The only thing I see myself doing differently is I have to be more sociable in the group chats, especially if I want to have that ever-elusive photo shoot slot. Before signing off this video, I do want to give a couple of shout-outs. First of all, big shout-out goes to Damien Tanuki and Reg there for letting me jam with them. You guys are awesome. A shout-out goes out to Tenacious Fox for all the conversations we had when I was having my downtime. Shout out goes to Roscoe Raccoon and his dad, the Moaning Cat, for being my drinking buddies. Another shout out goes to the convention crew and the convention staff, as well as the staff of the Birmingham Metropole Hilton for hosting our little menagerie. And of course, a big shout out goes to all of you awesome furry fussbutts for whom there are too many to mention. And that wraps up another episode of Furry Fandom Stories. Again, if you like this video, please leave a thumbs up and smash that subscribe button if you haven't already. If you were at ConFuzzled this year, what were the memories you would cherish? Sound off in the doodly-doo below. And as always, you can follow me on the website formerly known as Twitter at SandyBfox, and I'm on BlueSky at SandyBfox.Bsky.social. And I will hopefully be seeing you at the inaugural Pulsum event at the Bowden Hall Hotel in Gloucester, October 4th to October 7th. I'm Sandy Brishtail, and I'll see you again for another Furry Fandom story. But until then, take care. What? Is there something wrong with my face?